Të nderuar përfaqësues të Ministrisë të Turizmit dhe Mjedisit, të nderuar kolegë nga institucionet kërkimore dhe universitare të Shqipërisë, pjesëmarrës nga vendi dhe nga partnerët tanë ndërkombëtar, të nderuar miq të shkencës dhe të shëndetit publik. Kam kënaqësinë dhe nderin e veçantë që në emër të Akademisë Shkencave të Shqipërisë t'ju uroj mirëseardhjen në këtë konferencë të tretë ndërkombëtare mbi shëndetin publik dhe mjedisin. Kjo ngjarje shkencore mbahet fal një bashkëpunimi të mbar e të frutshëm me Universitetin George Mason të Shteteve të Bashkuara, me Kolegjin Ramazzini, si dhe me përfshirjen e shumë institucioneve akademike e kërkimore shqiptare. Kjo konferencë është e para e këtij lloji në vendin tonë, që vendos në qendër të diskutimit shkencor ndërveprimin kompleks dhe të gjithanshëm midis ndotjes mjedisore dhe shëndetit publik, referuar orientimit thelbësor të organizatës botërore të shëndetësisë se, citoj, mjediset e shëndetshme janë thelbësore për popullata të shëndetshme. Mbyllet citimi. Si e tillë, kjo konferencë përfaqëson një platformë bashkëpunimi, bashkëvizetimi dhe ndërveprimi mes institucioneve dhe specialistëve të shkencave të mjedisit dhe atyre të shëndetit publik, pa kufi, të cilët, ndonse i përkasin fushave të ndryshme, kanë një mision të përbashkët, mbrojtjen dhe përmirësimin e cilësisë së jetës së njerëzve. Qëllimi kryesor i kësaj konference është të sjellë në vëmendjen e komunitetit shkencor dhe të politikbërjes të dhënat më të fundit të studimeve mbi ndikimet e ndotjes së ajrit, ujit, tokës dhe ushqimit në shëndetin e popullatës. Pjesëmarrësit do të kenë mundësinë të njihen me rezultate kërkimore të standardeve ndërkombëtare dhe njerëzit të ndajnë përvojat e tyre mbi sfidat që paraqet monitorimi dhe menaxhimi i rrezikeve mjedisore për shëndetin publik. Një tjetër synim i rëndësishëm i kësaj konference është rritja e ndërgjegjësimit të opinionit publik dhe institucioneve vendimmarrëse mbi rëndësinë e uljes së ndotjes mjedisore dhe parandalimin e efekteve të saj në shëndet. Prandaj përshëndesim pjesëmarrjen në këtë rast të zonjës Zëvendës Ministre në këtë konferencë, një mbështetje të këtyre përpjekjeve që shkenca bën në këtë drejtim, sidomos për rolin e veçantë që Ministria e Shëndetësisë ka dhe duhet të ketë në mbështetje të shkencës në këtë aspekt. Shpresojmë që përmes diskutimeve dhe konkluzioneve të kësaj konference të sugjerohen dhe të merren masa më efektive në fushën e mbrojtjes mjedisit dhe të shëndetit. Dy fjalë për rolin e Akademisë së Shkencave. Akademia jonë e Shkencave përmes Komisionit të Përhershëm të Shkencave Biologjike dhe qendrave të saj kërkimore, si Qendra e Bioteknologjisë dhe Gjenetikës, Qendra Kërkimore e Ujrave, Qendra e Nanoteknologjisë, ka mbështetur dhe zhvilluar një serë projekte që trajtojnë ndotjen mjedisore dhe ndikimin e saj në shëndet. Këto projekte janë realizuar në bashkëpunim me Universitetin e Tiranës, Universitetin e Mjekësisë, QSU-tën, Universitetin Bujqësor, Institutin e Shëndetit Publik dhe me institucionet të tjera të vendit, si dhe në partneritet me grupime kërkimore shkencore ndërkombëtare. Nëpërmjet Qendrës së Bioteknologjisë dhe Gjenetikës, e krijuar së fundmi, Akademia është përfshirë në mënyrë aktive në projekte që synojnë përmirësimin e diagnozës dhe trajtimit të pacientëve në nevojë, duke kontribuar drejt për drejt në përmirësimin e shëndetit publik. Në përputhje me misionin e saj, Akademia e Shkencave po luan një rol aktiv në koordinimin e projekteve kombëtare të kërkimit shkencor, kjo në bashkëpunim me institucionet përkatëse, veçanërisht me Agjencinë Kombëtare të Kërkimit Shkencor dhe Inovacionit, për të garantuar që shkenca të vendoset realisht në shërbim të shoqërisë. Kjo konferencë e ka krijuar tashmë një traditë të vlefshme në hartën e ngjarjeve shkencore ndërkombëtare në Shqipëri. Ne besojmë se ajo do të vijojë të rritet me cilësi dhe përfshirje, duke u kthyer në një pikë referimi për bashkëpunimin ndërdisiplinor dhe ndërkombëtar në këtë fushë. Edhe një herë urime dhe përgëzimet më të mira për të gjithë pjesëmarrësit për punimet dhe kontributet e tyre origjinale, suksese konferencës. Faleminderit.
Thank you, Professor Vaso. I would like to extend a warm welcome for all the participants in these warm days of last June and initiation of July in Tirana. However, we have the mountain deity very close here that gives us some fresh air. And very close we have Adriatic Sea that in combination, they give some fresh air in these really cold days, warm days. I would like to continue now with the program, inviting Professor Mira Rakazzoli that will greet our conference on behalf of Ministry of Health and Social Protection. Please, you have the floor.
Të nderuar organizator të konferencës, të dashur të nderuar pjesëmarrës, është vërtet një kënaqësi për mua që të jem pjesë e kësaj konference si përfaqësuese e Ministrisë së Shëndetësisë dhe Mbrojtjes Sociale, dhe të sjell këtu edhe përshëndetjet personale të ministres zonjës Koçiu, e cila ishte e përgatitur për të ardhur në këtë konferencë, sidomos për tematikën e rëndësishme që ju do trajtoni sot, por që për një mbledhje të papritur të qeverisë pikërisht në orën 9 nuk mund të ishte e pranishme dhe ma dha mua jo vetëm kënaqësinë, por edhe në radhë parë privilegjin për të sjellë përshëndetjet e ministrisë dhe të sajat personale. Në fakt, vërtet është një konferencë shumë e rëndësishme, sepse ju sot do diskutoni për një nga hallkat më të rëndësishme dhe unë do ta konsideroja edhe më urgjente të shëndetit publik, marrëdhënien e shëndetit publik me mjedisin. Ne të gjithë që jemi këtu, sepse jemi të përfshirë në këtë tematikë, e dim se kjo marrëdhënie nuk është më teorike, se mund të ishe menduar përpara, dhe nuk është më larg nesh. Ajo shfaqet në mënyrë të përditshme, shfaqet në ajrin që ne thithim çdo ditë, shfaqet në ujin që ne përdorim çdo ditë, shfaqet në temperaturat që, siç e tha edhe profesori, në këtë fund qershori janë të rësisht të pazakonshme, ashtu sikurse kanë qenë edhe gjatë dimrit të pazakonshme ato temperaturat e ftohta për Shqipërinë, dhe që bëjnë edhe një ndikim të madh në shëndetin ton, duke shtuar njëkohësisht edhe barrën e sistemit ton shëndetësor. Dhe në fakt shumë shifra flasin vetë, rres ju e dini dhe më mirë se unë që sot rreth 7 milion njerëz në botë vdesin vetëm nga ndotja e ajrit, ashtu sikurse 1.4 milion të tjerë vdesin nga përdorimi i ujit të ndotës edhe higjienës bazë. Dhe sipas një studimi të fundit që unë mund ta shoh shpejt e shpejt, rreth 489.000 vdekje në vit vijnë nga nxehtësia ekstreme dhe ky numër vazhdon të rritet jo vetëm në vendet jo shumë të zhvilluara, por edhe ato në vendet që janë edhe me sisteme shëndetësore disi të konsoliduara, siç është për shembull vdekjet që patën në Francë ose që patën sidomos në Spanjë në verën e kaluar. Por sigurisht që ne nuk jemi këtu sot për të dëgjuar këto fakte që të gjithë i dinë ose që mund t'i shohim. Por jemi këtu sepse besojmë që diçka duhet të ndryshojë dhe mund të ndryshojë. Dhe mund të ndryshojë vetëm nëse ka një bashkëveprim real ndërmjet dijes, politikës dhe praktikës. Sepse tashmë të gjithë e kemi kuptuar se sado që të jetë dija dhe praktika, po nuk ishte ndërthurur edhe politika, gjërat nuk ndryshojnë aq shpejt dhe aq mirë sa do duhet të ndryshonin. Prandaj, kjo konferencë ta jep një mundësi shumë të madhe të gjithëve për të ndarë përvoja, për të sfiduar supozime se çfarë ka ndodhur dhe çfarë do duhet të ndodhi, dhe sidomos për të ndërtuar ura midis fushave që shpesh funksionon në paralel, por radh ndërthuren me njëri tjetrin. Dhe natyrisht kjo është një gjë që shumë mirë e kapur sot, sepse përveç shëndetësisë, këtu janë të përfshirë edhe njerëz nga Ministria e Mjedisit, janë dhe njerëz të përfshirë nga Ministria e Bujqësisë, pra të gjithë që në fushat e tyre ndërthuren me mjedisin, por që rrallë bashkëpunojnë ashtu siç duhet. Dhe në këtë konferencë aq më tepër duhet që të diskutojmë për të gjetur mënyra të reja për ndërgjegjësimin dhe inkurajimin e qytetarëve, por edhe të vetë vendimarrësve, që mjedisi të mos trajtohet më si temë drejtësore, por si një pjesë e pandashme e shëndetit dhe e zhvillimit të qëndrueshëm. Kështu që falenderoj të gjithëve, sidomos Akademinë për temën e rëndësishme që ka zgjedhur, për njerëzit profesionistë që ka grumbulluar në këtë lloj diskutimi, dhe natyrisht besoj që do të ketë më tepër se sa një diskutim, do të ketë konkluzione që do t'i shërbejnë shumë edhe politikës. Faleminderit dhe sukses.
Faleminderit Professor Mira për fjalën. Thank you, Professor Mira. And now we are, there is a speech from Professor Melissa Diarmot from the United States, who is the co-president of the Kolegjin Ramazzini, which is the co-organizer of this conference. This is a registered speech, and we hope to have her here now because of the difference in of the hours with the United States. We are not able to. She is not able to follow directly the conference.
Po mundohen të lidhen, po s'është lidhe akoma.
Atëherë ftojmë zonjën Claudiana Agolli nga Ministria e Turizmit dhe Mjedisit të mbajë një fjalë përshëndetëse.
Përshëndetje, faleminderit profesor, faleminderit për mbiemrin e babait me të cilin më cilësuat. Unë jam përfaqësuesja e Ministrisë së Turizmit dhe Mjedisit dhe faktikisht dua të shpreh në radhë të parë kënaqësinë për ftesën për të marrë pjesë në këtë sesion shkencor i cili ka të bëjë me politikat në cilësinë e ajrit, roli i tij në shëndetin njerëzor, masat që ndërmerren për të parandaluar dhe përmirësuar. Dua të them që Ministria e Turizmit dhe Mjedisit është një institucion qendror politikbërës i cili ka përgjegjësinë për hartimin e politikave, kuadreve ligjore dhe nënligjore, strategjive dhe programeve të ndryshme të cilat kanë të bëjnë me cilësinë e ajrit. Sikurse ju e dini, Ministria e Turizmit dhe Mjedisit në të njëjtën kohë është edhe koordinator dhe përgjegjës për kapitullin 27, kapitulli që është mjedisi dhe klima, ku një nga nën sektorët për të cilën shteti shqiptar ka ndërmarrë angazhime është edhe cilësia e ajrit. Në qoftë se flasim për politikat për cilësinë e ajrit në kuadër të Bashkimit Evropian, dua të them që ne kemi një shkallë të avancuar për sa i takon kuadreve ligjore dhe politikave për sa i takon cilësisë së ajrit. Megjithatë, pjesa që i takon zbatimit në nivelin vendor dhe përkthimit të këtyre politikave dhe strategjive në nivel vendor, lë akoma vend për përmirësime të ndjeshme. Ne kemi një strategji kombëtare të menaxhimit të cilësisë, për menaxhimin e cilësisë së ajrit, dhe ndërkohë është pritshmëria që të gjitha njësitë e veçëverisjes vendore të hartojnë strategjitë e tyre lokale për menaxhimin e cilësisë së ajrit, të cilat duhet të jenë pjesë e planeve të përgjithshme vendore. Ndërkohë Shqipëria ka përqafuar agjendën e gjelbër europiane dhe njëkohësisht agjendën e gjelbër për vendet e Ballkanit Perëndimor, ku po këtu një nga shtyllat kryesore është dhe përmirësimi i cilësisë së ajrit. Kjo për faktin se cilësia e ajrit është e lidhur ngushtësisht me mbrojtjen e shëndetit, me parandalimin e sëmundjeve, janë gjetur nëpërmjet burimeve shkencore lidhje të ndryshme të cilat ekzistojnë ndërmjet një ajri të ulët për sa i përket standardeve dhe kritereve të Organizatës Botërore të Shëndetësisë, me probleme shëndetësore, veçanërisht tek fëmijët e vegjël, që mund të jenë probleme të sistemit të frymarrjes, alergjive, astmave të ndryshme e të tjerë. Ka një nevojë shumë të madhe për pjesën e monitorimit të ajrit, ka një nevojë shumë të madhe për lidhjen e kërkimit shkencor, i cili bën të mundur më pas që ky kërkim shkencor i bazuar në të dhëna shkencore të përkthehet në politika dhe në strategji më të mira për përmirësimin e cilësisë së ajrit, për parandalimin e sëmundjeve, për rritjen e cilësisë së jetës së njeriut dhe për këtë arsye unë mendoj që të gjitha kërkimet shkencore të cilat bëhen në këtë fushë i shërbejnë më së miri hartimit të politikave të drejta. Faleminderit dhe ju uroj punë të mbarë.
Thanks, Claudie, for your warm speech. Now to continue with our program, we shall start with the first session, Air Quality and Health, and I invite
Po të përgjithësuesi nga Kolegji Ramazzini që më flasin në emër të Melisës.
Okay.
Është Simona, është dhe profesor Manu.
Atëherë, të ftojmë. Okay.
Cili të flasin? Cili nga ato dy të?
Simona.
Simona kush? Që kam bjerë?
I kemi Simonës, thjesht jemi.
Simona. Person.
Okay, we have some changes now. So just to have an greeting speech from Ramazzini, I invite a representative of this institution, Simona, just to greet our conference. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. And it's my first time in Tirana, so I really enjoy to present here tomorrow. I'm Simona Pansacchi from Ramazzini Institute in Italy. I don't know if also the president, the secretarian of the Kolegjin Ramazzini is online because I saw his face. And I am happy to be here with you. And I really hope that this conference this is Daniele, my supervisor. I'm sorry, it's like a big brother and he is controlling me, I think. So thank you so much and thanks for this amazing conference. It's my first time here and I'm sure I will really enjoy this conference. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, now let's go on with the first session. As I told you, air quality and health. I would like to invite to moderate this first session, Tommaso Filippini, Arbi Pezzani, and Edlira Barai.
Good morning, and good morning everybody for being here. I'm very excited also with my colleagues of this first session. It's my second time in Tirana to this place, Academy of Science. And the program is very interesting and full. And so I think we can leave more space for the questions and we can start with the presentation. After the presentation of my colleagues, you want to present yourself?
Okay. I'm Edlira Barai, coming from Polytechnic University of Tirana, at the Department of Chemical Engineering. Today I will moderate this session together with my colleagues. I'm very, very honored. Okay.
I'm Arbi Pezzani, Associate Professor of Rheumatology, Medical University of Tirana. So welcome everybody and let's hope we'll have a nice time together.
And I forgot to say, yeah, I'm a associate professor of public health at Modena and Reggio Emilia University in Italy. And let's start with the first presentation, on environmental influences of rheumatoid arthritis, the role of air, water, and food contaminants. So, the floor is yours.
And hello again, and good morning, and thank you very much for the invitation. And I speak today about rheumatoid arthritis and the environment, actually, in three different shapes. Well, rheumatoid arthritis, as you may all know, is a disease, is an autoimmune disease with symmetrical involvement of the joints, with a duration of more than 6 weeks. That makes this a chronic disease. And it is represented mostly by morning stiffness, more than 16 minutes. And the process develops due to a dysregulation in the autoimmune system that brings to a higher citrullination process and damages of the joints. Despite the joints, rheumatoid arthritis shows even some extra-articular manifestation, mostly focusing on the lungs, on the heart, and different other organs. And regarding the laboratory for the diagnosis of rheumatoid arthritis, we use the presence of anti-CCP antibodies, which are specific in 98% of the cases. Why am I talking about rheumatoid arthritis today? Because rheumatoid arthritis is one of the most prevalent autoimmune diseases, with 70 new cases per 1,000 inhabitants per year. And 80% of these patients are young, from 30 to 50 years old. And this is a disease that affects the women 3 times more than males. And different studies have shown that we have an increased burden of 11% during the next years. Well, the development of rheumatoid arthritis is, let's say, a mixture of genetic predisposition, environmental factors, which we are going to talk today. So considering all this, I would say that the aim of the presentation is to investigate the role of the concomitants of air, of water, and of food contaminants, and their contribution in the onset of the disease, and as well on the prognosis of rheumatoid arthritis, how they influence this disease. So we have performed literature research using the keywords, as you can see, and the databases. The most frequent one, the PubMed, the Scopus. We have an inclusion criteria. We have chosen most of the articles that were in English, which were 95% of the published article regarding this argument. And I would go quickly on smoking as one of the most important factors on the development of rheumatoid arthritis. And actually, it's the only modifiable factor that can change even the course of rheumatoid arthritis. Cigarette smoking, the active or the passive way, it's the most studied factor actually. Then there are about 4,000 chemicals that are included in the cigarette that can induce post-translational modifications that can be the beginning of an autoimmune process with the production of antibodies and then the development of rheumatoid arthritis. I'd like to emphasize the role of smoking as a risk factor. So people that smoke have a two-fold risk to develop rheumatoid arthritis. And smoking is one of the factors that can create problems and difficulties in response to the therapies that we use for rheumatoid arthritis. Regarding the air pollution, which is basically the focus of this session, I can say that air pollutants that are produced mostly by fossil combustions share several toxic constituents with the cigarette smoking. So air pollution is a complex of particulate matter and of gases. And in this regard, many components of diesel combustions can bind to aryl hydrocarbon receptor and can regulate the expression of T helper 17 and Treg cells. On the other hand, air pollutions can cause oxidative stress and inducible bronchus-associated lymphoid tissue, influencing both T and B cells and resulting in the production of pro-inflammatory cytokines and other ways resulting in the development of an autoimmune response and an autoimmune disease like rheumatoid arthritis. In these studies, in this presentation, we have included different studies, but most of them were of two types: the cohort cross-sectional analysis that take into account controls and cases, and there were even studies that are cohort case crossover study, which take into account only cases, so patients that have problems, but at different time points. As you may see, I have summarized in this table, the studies, the findings from these 4 studies, where it has been noted that particulate matter 2.5 is one of the strongest air polluters that can be associated to rheumatoid arthritis onset and, of course, to the production of autoantibodies and the progression of the disease, as well as worse response to treatments. This can be done since the particulate matter 2.5 enters the organism through the lungs, and then it gets to the circulation, and then it can create the chronic systemic inflammation. This chronic systemic inflammation is done through the activation of the immune cells and promoting the oxidative stress. Particulate matter 2.5 is one of the air pollutants that can change the proteins, so modifies the proteins through the starting a post-translational modification process and bringing to the production of autoantibodies connected to rheumatoid arthritis. While on the other hand, in these studies, a role has been attributed even to particulate matter 10, which has been connected to an impact in the airways and an increased risk of mortality in patients with rheumatoid arthritis and lung disease associated to rheumatoid arthritis. On the other end, talking about gases, we have from the 4 studies analyzed in this slide, we have a strong evidence of the role of nitric oxygen as a strong gas that can be one of the gases that can exacerbate the rheumatoid arthritis, can be one of those gases that can play a role in the onset of the disease, and as well has been associated with higher titers of antibodies in the presence of rheumatoid arthritis. There is even a study of 2024 when there is a forecasting of rheumatoid arthritis based on the pollution of the air, and it has been presented by a Chinese group. As you may see, they have put the different gases that and particulate matter that they have studied as air pollution, and from that they can predict how many patients with rheumatoid arthritis they can have in 1 to 5 years from the study. I can say that the number is always increasing in this regard. Despite the air pollution, I would go briefly on water pollution, as there is a big connection with rheumatoid arthritis and water pollution, and of course, in terms of onset of the disease and severity of the disease. And here again, I have summarized all the studies in concise tables. So the groundwater that may be polluted by heavy metals, these heavy metals can serve as immune triggers for rheumatoid arthritis, and they can also proceed to disease flares that can be very often in terms of patients with rheumatoid arthritis. the presence of heavy metals in water can, let's say, reduce the effect of treatment of patients with rheumatoid arthritis. Surface water, in case that is polluted with industrial waste or plastic or urban runoff, all these chemicals can trigger rheumatoid arthritis only in patients that are genetically predisposed to develop rheumatoid arthritis, despite from the groundwater that can trigger rheumatoid arthritis in all subjects. The surface water pollution can lead to low-grade inflammation and the positivity only for rheumatoid factor, and of course an increased toxicity from the drugs that we use to treat patients with rheumatoid arthritis. Well, suspended matters, well, they are mostly an adjuvant to enhancing the immune response, and they are linked to chronic inflammation through B cells, but not as strong as the groundwater pollution. Moreover, oil spillages like hydrocarbons, benzenes, or toluenes, they are connected to oxidative stress, and they worsen the damages in terms of rheumatoid arthritis. They are connected to the production of antibodies against citrullinated proteins, and they increase as well the toxicity of liver from the drugs that we use to treat rheumatoid arthritis, otherwise called DMARDs. Microbiological pollution is another way of polluting the water, and in case of rheumatoid arthritis, pollution of water with bacteria like Escherichia coli or with Clostridium or hepatitis A virus can cause a molecular mimicry and epitope spreading, which can bring to the development of rheumatoid arthritis, most particularly the rheumatoid arthritis associated to the joints. I would like to stop for 5 seconds in here. When we talk about rheumatoid arthritis and etiology, there are two supposed theories. One, that it starts from the lungs, and the other one, that rheumatoid arthritis starts from the gut. Starting from the lungs, as I told before, it's associated to the citrullination due to smoking and probably even due to particulate matter inhaling. Well, starting from the gut, it's because of the dysbiosis caused by infections of microbiological agents. And in this case, we have a rheumatoid arthritis that affects only joints and is characterized by the presence of rheumatoid factor, a positive rheumatoid factor. On the other hand, chemical pollution by pesticides, solvents, they can disrupt the immune tolerance and can bring to a systemic inflammation and a systemic rheumatoid arthritis with a positive autoantibody presence and a big interference with the therapies applied to treat the patient. So even the therapies won't be efficient enough to receive the remission in these patients. Thermal pollution, it's actually an indirect trigger of rheumatoid arthritis, and there are not a lot of evidence that can be linked with rheumatoid arthritis, but of course, thermal pollution impacts the drug metabolism in these patients. At last, oxygen depletion, it's a toxic exposure, and it can affect the detox pathways in terms of treating patients with rheumatoid arthritis. When we talk about rheumatoid arthritis at food and food pollution, well, there are different types of food pollution. We have physical pollution of the food, and in that case, there is an immune activation through the microplastic way, which brings to chronic inflammation and high levels of autoantibodies. And in these patients, we may have an alert drug absorption or immune response. Regarding biological pollution of the food, this is a way when there is the presence of molecular mimicry induced by the pathogens, which brings to the development of a dysbiosis through the axis of gut and joints. And all this leads to high levels of autoantibodies, which can be an important cause of rheumatoid arthritis. Chemical pollution of food can dysregulate the immune system through the xenobiotics and can activate an immune process through high levels of oxidative stress, which can result in high production of antibodies, especially of antibodies against citrullinated proteins, which can lead to an altered even metabolism of drugs that we use for the treatment of rheumatoid arthritis. Regarding the metals that we find in foods that can be polluted, we have seen that arsenic is linked to joint inflammation through the reactive oxidative stress pathway, and it brings to high levels of autoantibodies, which are connected to directly to the onset and the prognosis of rheumatoid arthritis. Lead, on the other hand, leads to a dysregulation of the equilibrium between T and B cells, which brings to high levels of inflammatory markers like TNF-alpha or interleukin-1, which can enhance the activity of T helper 17, and which can bring to higher level of autoantibodies, being a main cause of exacerbation of rheumatoid arthritis and flares of the disease, especially in the forms of systemic disease when other organs are involved, like the kidney. Mercury actually is one of the let's say, metals that can bring to the loss of the tolerance of the immune system, and it can go to autoantigen release and the synovial damage, and it can bring to high levels of autoantibodies and reduce efficacy of immunosuppressive that we use to treat these patients. Cadmium, it's one of the metals that is strongly linked to rheumatoid arthritis. There is strong evidence in this regard, and it goes toward the cartilage erosion by activating the osteoclasts, and it's associated by high levels of citrullinated proteins, which are one of the markers of rheumatoid arthritis. Cadmium food pollution is a factor that affects treatment of rheumatoid arthritis patient, especially due to the hepatonephrotoxicity for the drugs that is raised for the drugs that we use to treat rheumatoid arthritis. I would like to bring the end of this presentation by saying that we have to strengthen mostly the regulation regarding the air and water quality in order to prevent diseases like rheumatoid arthritis. We should always, let's say, speak in favor of stopping smoking, of choosing organic productions, and of using filters for the water. And of course, we have to educate all those patients that are presently affected by rheumatoid arthritis about the environmental risk and how to avoid them. So in conclusion, I would say that environment plays an important role in the onset and on the progression of rheumatoid arthritis, which is actually it's the most prevalent autoimmune rheumatic disease. Air, water, and food pollutants contribute to the immune dysregulation, which stays in the basis of the development of the disease. And there is a lot of need of interdisciplinary research in this regard in Albania. So I hope I am in the time, and I thank you very much for the attention and for the opportunity.
Perfectly in time.
Thank you.
So, there are any questions for
No.
Please.
Congratulations for your presentation. And you mentioned that concerning the PM, particulate matter, that have different size. Does exist any study concerning the correlation between size of the particles and the impact on the health? Is increased or is decreased uh, decreasing the size of the particles?
Thank you for the question. As far as I know, 2.5, the smallest size, it's associated to stronger evidence for developing rheumatoid arthritis. Being smaller, it can be inhaled despite the precautions, it can be inhaled, entering in the lungs, it can be transported directly to the blood, and in the blood, it can create the autoimmune response. So the smaller the size, the bigger the effect on rheumatoid arthritis development and progression as well.
So 0.1 is the impact is higher.
Not really. 2.5 is the impacting side.
Because I believe that this comes as the data that are reported mainly for 2.5 and 10
Yes.
microgram. For that reason, maybe there are not enough studies concerning the.
That's for sure. So environmental rheumatoid arthritis is still, let's say, not a very good studied field. So the PM 2.5 is the one that is connected strongly to rheumatoid arthritis development and progression. The PM 10 is connected mostly to the development of cardiovascular manifestation in terms of rheumatoid arthritis with lung disease. So we have a more complicated patient that probably has started with a 2.5 exposure. So these were the data, at least in the 5 years of literature that we have reviewed. Last 5 years, so it's from 2020.
Because you're very right. Most of the studies are on the contaminants and pollutants that should be normated with the law, but there are several others that should be investigated with research. And I have a question, actually.
Yes.
You mentioned about the more need of studies in Albania, and are there any studies in Albania about some environmental factors and rheumatoid arthritis?
As far as I'm concerned, there are no studies in this regard, especially in terms of rheumatoid arthritis and environmental factor. And let's say that this may be like called to study something like that, since even Albania now, it has started to become a more, let's say, industrialized area. So with more maybe higher levels of pollution compared to many years ago. And the fact that we have more cases of rheumatoid arthritis, it's a sign maybe that we should study this relationship.
No, definitely. It's very interesting. Also assess the increasing incidence is very important to assess what are the factors underneath this increase.
Yes, I believe so.
Other questions? One?
Yes, of course.
Hi, I'm Mjedisin from University of Tirana, microbiologist in background. And I saw your presentation relation between microbiological pollution in water and rheumatoid arthritis. Is there any evidence or I don't know, for microbiological pollution, let's say of air, there are gram-positive bacteria in air that could be pathogens like streptococcus and others. So if there's any evidence regarding this.
Regarding streptococcus and rheumatoid arthritis, not that much. Is mostly connected to rheumatic fever. In all of the slides, I have built up some tables to summarize the studies in order not to go on by mentioning every study. So I put the references at the end of the slide. Microbiological pollution is important in developing rheumatoid arthritis, and based on the theory that chronic exposure to viruses can be a big trigger of the trigger the autoimmune system toward mechanisms of developing autoimmune disease. In people that have the the genetic predisposition to develop rheumatoid arthritis. Maybe there are studies about Escherichia coli, the infection of water with virus, with hepatitis A virus, with Clostridium. And in all these studies, there is, I wouldn't say a strong evidence, but moderate to strong toward the development of the disease. But for microbial getting from the air or the respiratory one, there has been studies mostly associated to the COVID, not to no. So those are, we have a small, let's say, some cases that we followed at our hospital that were published, but there is strong evidence associated mostly to viruses in this regard. Thank you.
Questions? Thank you, Albert, for your interesting
very much.
presentation. Indeed, this kind of another approach that you are presenting, you have presented for this disease. Now, I'm passing the floor to Professor Filippini from University of Modena and Reggio Emilia to treat his presentation, urban-related environmental risk factors and the risk of early onset dementia in Modena province, northern Italy.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. And let's say it's working. Yes. And I'm very happy to present here this research. We are working with our team that they are here with us on the study of urban-related environmental risk factors. And we are going to see which urban-related factors we are evaluating, and risk of early onset dementia. Why dementia? Dementia is a public health priority for the number of cases, the estimated number of cases in the 2050 are going to more than 150 million people. So it's a very high number of subjects with increasing burden for the caregivers, the family, and especially when the onset it's at young age, when the onset of the symptoms is before 65, we call it, the neurologists call it young or early onset dementia. And it's a very social and family challenging disease, and it's not rare because the prevalence is more than 100 per 10,000 population. 100, sorry, 100. And is increasing especially in at a young age. So it's at the rate of increase higher than the late onset dementia. And the latest Lancet Commission evaluated the risk factors for dementia, and I noted that 45 of them are potentially modifiable factors, and several of them are environmental factors. I talk about smoking, but we have also air pollution, social isolations. So there are rooms for prevention if 45% of the factors of dementia are modifiable. And which one we are evaluating? We are evaluating air pollution, greenness, the one we are a new one like pollution, and they are acting together in the mechanism of dementia. And in particular, we focus on 3 of them: air pollution, light pollution, and greenness as a potential protective factors. And why air pollution? And you probably already saw the new European limits that are going to be valid in 2030 that lower the level of air pollutants. And so a lot more of the population will be exposed to higher level. And this is the situation. I live in Italy, and this is the Pianura Padana land, the level of air pollutants. So in our region, we live in one of the most polluted areas for air pollution in Europe. This is for geographical design of this, with the mountain on the north and the south. We focus also on greenness, or the possible preventive effect of green spaces for lower mortality, improve of mental health. And we use for the assessment of greenness this index called normalized sorry, it's a modality to assess the level of green with a satellite. And so the more it's green, the more we have a flourished vegetation. The less it's green, we have less vegetation, and also with sparse trees or grass. And the last one is light and night. I don't know if you already saw something about light pollution, and there are a lot of studies linking light pollution with mental health, with depression, sleep disorders for sure, but there are increasing studies of the role of light pollution in the impairment of mental disease, in particular also autism, anxiety, depression, and now also dementia. For this reason, we use a case control study design to compare the exposure to these three environmental factors and cases of early onset dementia with diagnosis in our population between 1999 and 2021 with a diagnosis done by a team of neurologists in the memory clinic of our hospital, and control population was accrued from the local health authority registry, covering all the population in our province, and they were matched by sex and age. And going to the methods, we assess the exposure through a geographic information system. So we geocoded the residents and we integrated them in this GIS platform to assess the individual level of exposure to each factors. And this is the results. For green spaces, we have generally a lower risk with the highest exposure. For the air pollution evaluated through benzene, we have an increased risk for a very high level of exposure of the population. And for light pollution, contrary to what was expected, we have a lower risk in the population with increasing exposure. So there are some difference. The association is stronger in male than females for benzene, while the protective factor, the protective effect of green spaces is stronger in females. And we also perform spline, restricted spline analysis in order to assess the continuous variation of the risk with the variation of the exposure of the population. And as you can see, we found a decreased risk at very high exposure of green spaces, so a protective effect of green spaces, a high risk in the population higher than 1.0 microgram per meter cubic, of benzene and a almost linear decrease of risk with lowering light and night exposure. And effect modification of the sex and age. I already said there is stronger effect of benzene on traffic pollution in males than female, and the relation is almost linear in female, while there are no strong effect modification between sex and age for light and night. So, jumping to conclusion, we have a limitation of the study. We have high statistical imprecision of some of the estimates, also because the number of people in the highest exposure categories are very limited. We may have exposure misclassification because we're evaluating the exposure of people in their residence, and so several of these people are still working. And I don't know you, but I spend a lot of time at work and not at home, so the exposure may be different depending of the place where you spend most of your time. And one of the perspectives is to assess not just early onset dementia, because dementia is a very broad category of disease encompassing Alzheimer's disease, frontotemporal dementia, and so we want to perform stratified analysis by different type and see if there are any differences about this subtype of disease. Just the last two, in order to also show some feature of the green spaces, the NDVI index is evaluating the average exposure of green spaces, but there are some issues when using average. These two buffer around the residence may have the same average, but they are very different. And so the second implementation we are going to have in our study is to see if there are other modalities for the assessment of green spaces and how the people can access the green spaces, because I may have the green spaces in my proximity, but I cannot access this. Like the park we are here, it's very close to several houses, but not all people can access in the park. And thank you. I want to thank you all the people working on this project, starting from my colleague from Public Health, Camilla, and Marco who are here, Asia, and the environmental engineer. They estimated the environmental exposure. It's a very strong collaboration, and all the neurologists in our department, they are seeing the people, the patients, and they are recruiting them for find some possible explanation of why they are developing dementia and other people not. And thank you.
Any question? Yes.
Well, microfono.
Follow on your discussion
Yeah.
about the methodology. It would be very interesting for us to know more. Probably I missed it at the beginning. How do you measure the exposure? So are you going to?
If I have a slide, I can show.
I hope some of my colleagues.
In short words, we use the residence and we geocoded using the geographic coordinates of the participants in latitude and longitude, and so we put in the map. We have another map with the coverage of green spaces in our area or the air pollution levels in our provinces and light pollution. So we can this one. We have several layers. One is the coordinates, one is the air pollution level, light pollution level, and green spaces. And then this is engineering. They merged, they combined all the layers. And then for every participant, we have an estimate of air pollution exposures, an average of air pollution exposure in let's say, independing of the contaminants. For example, the 10 years average of traffic-related benzene exposure, the 10 years average of green spaces exposure.
So you talked about an index, which is an average of.
The index is an average of the reflection, is a satellite-based evaluation of green level. Is based on the infrared reflection of the light. If the light is reflected more, we have more green. And so we can see if the area the people are living, it's more or less green.
And do you differentiate between different exposures, like you say green, then is the air pollutants?
We have
Then
three
light-
index. We have
Three index.
Yes, we have three index. Sorry, I went too fast. We have three index: the NDY, green spaces, the traffic-related air pollution using benzene, and light pollution with luminance is the last one in nanowatt per sievert per centimeter square. So we have three different exposures, and the analysis is adjusted, matched by sex, age, and adjusted for all the the pollutant level.
Thank
Sorry, I went too fast.
There is another question. Okay.
During the COVID time, it was, there have been many studies concerning the correlation between the COVID and air pollution.
Yeah.
And as argument has been given the fact that the death rate at the north. We know on the other side that the PM air pollution have a big impact on the different diseases. This is confirmed as well for other cardiovascular diseases. The death rate of the north and the south is different.
Yes, yes. We also saw this in our population about the role and the relation between air pollutants and mortality. In this case, all the participants were recruited just before. A very small part of the population was recruited during the pandemic. So large majority is before. And also the level of air pollutants we used is a model based on the average level, not taking into account the lowering level during the pandemic. So it's a very important point because we saw this lower level in the past, and we took into account with the model run before and not taking account the pandemic effect. And for the higher mortality, we studied this also in our population, and we have a higher mortality for the north of the country because of in our region and Lombardy and Piedmont, they have the 40% of the industries. So it's a very big area with air pollution. A point I want to highlight in our study, we didn't use all the level of air pollutants, but the traffic-related air pollution. So it's just a part because the difference in the exposure between the population in the city is not the average from the industries, but is the level from the traffic. So we want to assess the specific effect of traffic-related air pollution. That is, in our region, one of the biggest issues. We have the Emilia state across all our region. It is very important artery of the country, but we have a lot of pollution from that. So it's also a way to see if we can have a public health intervention to lower the level of pollutants in our region.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Just out of the curiosity, you mentioned the light exposure.
Yeah.
Is this only for the artificial light exposure or for the natural light?
The index is assess the artificial light exposure, not the naturally, the natural light exposure, and he use a measurement of the level of light during night. So when there is natural sources of light pollution, they are excluded from the estimation. We don't have volcano, but for example, if you have a volcano erupting, the light of the volcano are deleted from the estimation.
Is that during the summer they have just.
But for the Nordic country, they use just the average on the night. But it's a very big, it's a very important point because we studied the effect of light pollution in our latitude, and so we may have a higher effect of artificial light pollution because we are not used like northern country to have light for several hours during the night. So it's very important. We saw differences between Northern Europe and Southern Europe. The studies in Southern Europe, so we don't have this issue.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Question? No.
Thank you for very interesting presentation. Actually, the concept of light is quite interesting and that effect to the pollution, to the dementia. But in one of the slides, I'm not quite sure if you have been including only light and also other aspects or not, because in one of the terms you used was also the zebra, because the concept of light is quite visible light or much more higher spectrum, which can implicate the dementia. Because in some of the factors, the terms used was quite much more wider.
Okay.
Do you have any comment on that? Thank you.
It's a very good point. I know there are studies assessing difference between the type of light. This index we used is not able to differentiate, but there are other modalities of evaluation of light, and we are checking with the engineering department to have different indexes. With let's say the blue light maybe pose a higher risk than the white. So we are trying to have an homogeneous assessment of light in our population. And this is the first one. Also, it's an open access source from Europe. And this is the first attempt. I don't know if there are other studies on light pollution and dementia. I think it's the first one at least in Italy. And but we are trying to improve, and you are perfectly right. The assessment of light is very different between the type, and we have a very good team at the engineering department, and we will try to address this. For now, the answer is no. We didn't differentiate between the type of light.
Thank you so much, Professor Filippini. And I'm giving the floor to myself now.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So with great pleasure, I introduce Elira Baray from the Department of Chemical Engineering of the Polytechnic University of Tirana. Her talk is about air pollution from open waste burning in Albania, a growing public health threat.
I see that the presentations are going one by one and are keeping the same structure for the impact of air pollution in the public health. This is a part of a study that I will treat a little bit more during my presentation, but which we have done together with our colleagues from the University of Massachusetts Lowell, Professor Bello and both Professor Bellos and their staff and the staff of our department, Department of Chemical Engineering at Polytechnic University of Tirana. It's a project under READ program, and it has been initiated exactly from the main concern that air pollution is presenting to public health in Albania. We have seen, we have been part of the studies during these last decades, but also these studies are showing the problems that air pollution is causing to our population, and the speakers before have mentioned, and I'm not developing further. But what I wanted to say that the sources of pollution in Albania have changed, have shifted from industrial pollution, mainly caused from chemical factories, to major factors as construction and public transportation and transport, vehicle transport. But what we are looking now is that open burning of waste is an emergent source of pollution in Albania, because this burning of waste includes burning of several materials like plastics, biological, chemical, other chemical materials, batteries, electronics, household waste, and industrial waste. And we see pictures, different pictures we have taken so far. No, the last ones are from the internet, but we have taken several pictures everywhere in the country of the waste burned during last summer. And in fact, we have seen yesterday in Ostima what was happening. And every day we are facing such events by ourselves when we are traveling, but also in chronics of television. And the problem is that such places or such open burning pits are emitting several pollutants, including particulate matters, which are the most studied, but also other gases and volatile organic compounds, polycyclic hydrocarbons, aromatic hydrocarbons, dioxins, biphenyls, and etc. The first two groups here at emitted pollutants are included in 6 criteria pollutants determined by EPA, but also by European Union. And the sixth one, in fact, is lead. But there are gases which are very dangerous, and as Arbor presented before, they are very much also linked with several diseases, not only cardiovascular or respiratory diseases, which are directly linked with particulate matter and gases and the air pollution. In fact, just a moment. I think that you missed a slide here. Maybe you have not included. Okay, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. In fact, this study, as I mentioned before, is a part of an overall study which is trying to make a kind of integrated chemical characterization of air pollutants. And the study is divided in several parts. The major part is collecting direct samples from using standard European methods, using the TECORA ECO PM10, PM2.5 simultaneous sampler in different monitoring sites. And the second part is this real-time measuring by using portable multimeters. And the third part is after gathering all the measures to do the statistical analysis and to find the model that will fit with that will better interpret the situation of pollution in these monitoring sites, and also that will create the possibility to make the real recommendations for improvement. This is a picture taken in Rogozina area, but as I mentioned before, we are used, especially in weekends, when we are traveling from Tirana, for instance, to Vlora, to see such kind of pictures on the way that we are passing through. This was a slide. As I mentioned, we have integrated sampling measurements and direct reading measurements. The samples that are collected by using TECORA or standard methods, there are around 240 samples collected so far, are sent now in the University of Massachusetts Lowell, and they have made all the analysis by ICP-MS, LC-MS-MS for metals and for PFAS. In fact, they are doing now organics and nanoplastics and doing the characterization, chemical characterization of the composition on the filters. But we are talking today for the direct reading measurements. Sorry. Methodology that we have used is by using Aeroqual monitor and testo. Aeroqual 500 series has been used for measuring PM10, PM2.5, nitrogen dioxide, sulfur dioxide, carbon monoxide, ozone, and volatile organic compounds, while carbon dioxide and airflow has been measured by using testo equipment. As you see, we are measuring nearby open burning pits, but also without the presence of the burning. And measurements have been taken, or the equipments have been recorded for about 2 hours, because we have to swap the sensors one by one. There have been 6 monitoring sites, 2 in Tirana, 2 in Elbasan, 1 in Shkencave, but is still Tirana district, and 1 in Durrës. 4 of them urban and 2 rurals, but in these 2 rurals, in Mbahet and Shkencave, we have conducted measurements in with and without the presence of open burning of the waste. And average concentrations for 15 to 20 minutes have been taken, because the equipments have been calibrated to have the average of each minute, so to have measurements every minute. But we have measured for 15 to 20 minutes and repeated them. This is a summarized table, but I have put with red some figures, and for everybody that is aware of European standards, is clearly observable that they have passed very much, up to 300 times the maximum level. But for sure is a measurement in, as I said, 15 or 20 minutes of time. Maybe graphically is a little bit more clear. What we can see, there are two graphs because CO2, carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide have a different scale. That it's very difficult to put all of them because we cannot distinguish quite clear the difference for the other parameters. But what we can see is that despite the fact that, for instance, Vasilchanto Crossroad, which is one of the stations in Tirana, it's a polluted area, like in old Tirana, we see that in Mulet Cavaia and Ispile, I don't know, sorry, in Mulet and Ispile Cavaia, we observe very high values for nitrogen dioxide, sulfur dioxide, volatile organic compounds. And you see how much higher are than compared with Vasilchanto. Vasilchanto is the first column. The second one is for Mulet, and the third one is for Mulet without burning pits. And the measurements have been taken after 5 to 6 hours in both monitoring sites, either in Mulet or in Spile, 5 to 6 hours after the burning has completely stopped. And we see that in Spile still are remaining some volatile organic compounds and sulfur dioxides. All are much more above EU levels. Of course, these are real-time measurements. These are not average of 1 hour or 8 hour averages as are stipulated for in EU norms or in WHO guidelines. But considering the fact that we are facing very frequently such kind of behavior from our rural population, I can say that we are so much exposed under such very toxic pollutants. And in a, let's say, hidden way, because we don't understand, we just think that they are burning, let's say, biological materials, but not, because they are burning also batteries, plastics, and everything that they are having in their garden or their house. So we are full of dioxins and polyaromatic hydrocarbons and every kind of toxic, very toxic and dangerous pollutant. Just for comparison, here is a summary of some filters, let's say a picture of filters. In two first columns, filters that are taken by Tecora. In two first columns are in Vasilchanto. Filters collected one day pollution in Vasilchanto monitoring station, while in the others are more in rural areas and in the entrance of Elbasan. That was a surprise for us because we thought that it would be very, very polluted area, but it was not compared to Tirana or compared with these rural areas in the presence of open burning of the waste. As I mentioned, concentrations of PMs, nitrogen dioxides, sulfur dioxides, carbon monoxides, and volatile organic compounds are much higher than EU air quality standards, and we are not discussing about WHO guidelines now, and even not about ambitious targets of EU Green Agenda. So we are far from there, and we can say that not they are contributing to to very risky diseases and posing very, very great problems in our human health, but they are contributing to long-term air degradation. What we would recommend, impact monitoring. All of them, because as you mentioned before, we are very good in transposing legal documents and all standards and guidelines and norms in paper, but monitoring is very big problem. It's problem even for Europe. They have put in their agenda monitoring as a key pillar, let's say, to reach this air standard, at least approximately to WHO recommendations. But for us, that we also want to join EU by 2030, I think that we have so much work to do. And especially, I would suggest this punishment or ban in open burning of the waste. It was legal initiative 2 years ago by Albanian Assembly to have a prohibition of open burning of waste from March to November, but it has not been implemented. That's the point. Maybe we have to make those people more aware of their health and consequences. I have to acknowledge our partners from University of Massachusetts Lowell and also the READ program that have financed our project, and hope that will continue. Thank you so much for your attention. And sorry for my English.
Thank you very much for this interesting presentation. Now we are open to questions.
Don't be shy. I have a question. Very interesting compliments, Elvira. One, I missed probably in the first part, the sites you select in the studies are different in the type of waste they are burning. And the second is a curiosity because in the south, we have the same problem in the southern Italy with the plastic pipes used for tomato fields. And when they collect the tomatoes, they have the pipes, but they don't reuse it. They burn in the fields. So it's a very important issue in our country, this opening waste burning in the countryside.
Yeah, it's very, in fact, they are very complicated mixture. Of course, the plastic bottles are defined from what material they are produced, because we have PET, PTFA, and etc. So we have different types, but they are having also heavy metals inside. They are having also other components, and if they are burned together with batteries or electronic waste, many other components, chemical components, can be released, and the problem is because it's kind of a negative synergy between them, and the problem it becomes more severe. And we have studied PFAS, polyfluorinated aromatic substances, and poly and perfluorinated, and heavy metals. And in fact, in 6 sites in those filters collected, they have been detected PFAS from 1 to 5 PFAS in each filter. They have been analyzed around 100 filters, 97 if I'm not wrong, only for PFAS. and the rest for heavy metals and nanoplastics that are being analyzed right now. And it's a very, very strong correlation between gravimetric measurements of PM10, PM2.5, and content of this complex mixture of chemical components. In the final,
Interesting, very interesting.
we're not at the end right now, so we cannot give.
No, you're at the
figures,
beginning.
but, no, we're not at the beginning, but not at the final result.
No, it's very interesting. Also, the findings of PFAS are very, very interesting. I also thought about PFAS in the water, but you show that it's a very big issue also for air. So compliments again.
Most of them are long chain, under 7, but sealed. There are some short chain, but still there are some long chain. PFAS, yeah.
With very long life, so
Yeah.
the environment.
Yeah.
Any more questions? Yes, please.
Thank you for this brilliant presentation. And my curiosity, really not question, is something related to what Tommaso told now. Do you have the opportunity to collect also water and soil, in particular for PFAS, near and not so near and far from the place where these there are these waste?
Yes, it's not problem, but it was not the objective of our study.
Yeah, but are there in this country some
People working? Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes,
Perfect.
yes.
And it's not clear for me what is the legislation about this waste. There are some restriction in terms of months, no? Or it's
for PFAS, no, but for
no, for the
PFAS,
open waste burning, are there any, for the open waste burning, are there any legislation
it was a
restriction?
initiative by
okay.
being an assembly to stop this burning of waste in open places from March to November, because it's a habit in Albania that people in rural areas are burning their waste in open space. For in agriculture, I mean, in agriculture, not the urban waste, but even in agriculture or for agricultural purposes, we have seen, because as I mentioned in our study, we have measured or taken direct measurements in agricultural land, in those places in agricultural land, and we have seen that is very high content of these criteria pollutants.
Very, very interesting, really.
So another question in the front. Yeah.
Thank you for your residue of dioxins and some other issues regarding to the different kind of substances. My question is, do you try to analyze some sediments you are filtering regarding to the heavy metals? What kind of heavy metals are present in these filters?
We have already done the analysis of heavy metals, and we have found almost all of them.
Yeah, what kinds of heavy metals?
Lead, aluminum, magnesium, cadmium, chromium. We have found, because all the heavy metals have been analyzed. The only thing that I'm not giving the results because we are discussing the background a little bit. Some of them are giving through GEF analysis are giving a strong background. So we are not reached the final result. What we have to present is secure and real analysis. But they have analyzed all of them, all the heavy metals. Arsenic, for instance, has shown very much higher levels, and cadmium a little bit from what we have seen. For the rest, we are not giving the final response because we have to discuss about the background.
Did you find the residues of mercury?
Of what?
Of mercury?
Yes, but not so much.
Okay, what about the
I can show you the
Yeah,
data
yes,
later
yes.
on if you
just,
want.
just
Yeah.
to be clear, did you find I saw that you find some residues of dioxins.
They are being under analysis now.
Sorry?
Organics and nanoplastics are not analyzed yet. They are on.
I'm discussing about dioxins.
Yes, dioxins as well.
Because in a lot of burning sites and burning places, you can find high amount of dioxins because dioxin are produced where something is burned.
Yeah.
The main component of burning is dioxin.
Mhm.
So the dioxin is the big problem. Dioxins are the big problem all over the country. Most of them are problem in summertime because you know that summertime we have a lot of burning sites all over the country because of high temperature.
Mhm. Not only.
So yeah, it's my opinion because you see that a lot of forests are burning and the main component of burning is dioxin.
It's a strong discussion here. It depends.
Yes, if you are discussing for the air pollution, you have to think a lot about dioxins.
It's a debate. It's an interesting
it's
debate.
not-
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
no, it's not kind of debate, but you make a really good declaration because you present to all of us a really good result about different kind of substances, and most of them are complex substances, organic substances, and it's not so easy to detect, and it's really hard work to
yeah, do that.
to find and to detect in different kind of matrices like air, earth, or water. Really, it's a good work. Probably this work should be supported with other funds in order to
Yeah, for sure.
to find ways to detect each pollutants, because it's very important have to know how is the level of every substance that you mentioned in your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. In fact, this is a very interesting point, and I fully agree with you. Dioxins are very dangerous. We know from years already. And taking your point and taking also the Arbor's presentation, it would be very interesting to see how these pollutants can be introduced in vitro studies to have the good model for, or the better model for studying such diseases. And this would be very, very interesting for the future.
For sure.
Yes, you have to, you mentioned that you have to stimulate studies on the in vivo or in vitro studies regarding to the toxicological aspects.
Yeah.
This is very important.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, very interesting as as rise from this session. So when we do that, we will say we started from a session. So if there are no more questions, thank you, Professor Bara. We go on with Antigona Ukhajiai from the Medical Faculty, University Femia Gani, and also National Institute of Public Health in Pristina, Kosovo. Her presentation will be health impact of air pollution in Kosovo.
First of all, thank you for invitation. I'm glad to be here in front of you and to exchange our experience in same topics with air pollution. As a public health specialist in National Institute of Public Health in Kosovo. Sorry, can you... A mundesh me prezentu... Stoj, nuk e keni shfaq. Thank you. I will start with demographic data and geographical data for Kosovo because I'm a first from Republic of Kosovo here. Our country lies in the heart of southern peninsula in southern Eastern Europe, and it has a population of 1.7 million regarding to census 2023. Sorry. As with a median age of 29.1 years, Kosovo has among the youngest population in Europe. More than 40% of the population is under 25 years old. What we achieved, some of the indicators of health in Kosovo have improved. There has been a decline in the incidence of infectious disease since years 2001. We have low prevalence on HIV/AIDS from the beginning of the epidemic in the European region. Also, there has been a decline in TB incidence. WHO declared Kosovo as a polio-free, and vaccination rate in children in Republic of Kosovo may be comparable to other countries in the region. I found this report, which is published in 2023, and really I was surprised with findings regarding Health Effect Institute report because they found that global air pollution responsible for 40% of death from COPD, 90% of all cardiovascular deaths worldwide came from cardiovascular deaths from diabetes and lung cancer deaths, 20% of deaths from ischemic heart disease, and 30% of deaths came from, unfortunately, deaths from acute lower respiratory infection. Which is our role as an IPH? Our role is to advise the government on the public awareness, to advise general population, and also to advise vulnerable subgroups. But we work a lot to support health professionals in protection patients' health from air pollution harm effects. Which are the Kosovo demographic characteristics? As I say, 40.3% in Kosovo we have female and 49.7% are male. Regarding to Kosovo demographic characteristics by age group, 24.1, we have group age from 0 to 14, 67.2 group age 15 to 64, and just or only 8.7 we have group age 65 plus, which are in Kosovo total fertility is 1.65, but if you see infant mortality rate, we have highest number compared to EU country with 3.5 deaths. In our study, which we have done with Millennium Challenge Corporation between 2017 2019, we find that life expectancy in Kosovo for male gender was 75.9 years, and for female was 81.6 years. Different from World Bank report, which they find different findings, which in that report, which is published in Eurostat in 2021, they find different life expectancy for Kosovo. If we see this graph, we can see, unfortunately, 20% of all cases in Kosovo are uncoded. Diagnoses are uncoded for different reasons in Kosovo. And if we see this graph, we found that cause-specific mortality in Kosovo, we have in this proportional area 4.1 for lung cancer, 6.7% with respiratory diseases, 52.7 with circulatory diseases, and the other one depends with a total cause of specific mortality. We do not differ large from Albanian. If we saw previous presentation, and we have maybe same source of pollution in our country, and really environmental is not considered priority in Kosovo, as in Albania, maybe as in Balkan region. For the reason main source, we have energy, industry, traffic, agriculture, waste, and through this project, we find domestic heating are the common source of pollution in Kosovo, because at the beginning we thinking maybe is industry in Kosovo or is traffic or something else. But through this project, we find that this source of pollution is very important to even in cold season. And unfortunately in Kosovo, the people's behavior and awareness in the country in terms of air pollution is not sufficient. We should do further study, to do public campaign and many source of education through different population in Kosovo. Through this project, we also make inventory emission for first time in Kosovo. And we measure PM10 and PM,5 and compare to these main stressors of pollutions in Kosovo. And we found that a higher number of two pollutants came from small combustions, industry, and roads. Also, we have open monitoring data, and we are lucky to say that because we are the first in the European Commission agency with 100% open data, and we can share in daily, weekly, and monthly basis that. For now, we have 12 monitoring stations, and also we have one monitoring station in US Embassy, but just for PM2,5. We also compare our national guidelines with WHO guidelines and EU guidelines, and unfortunately we are not able to do and to compare our findings and our emissions with new WHO guidelines because they are very hard to fulfill from Kosovo side now. Why? If you see this table, you can see annual mean concentration measures in the state monitoring station in Kosovo. And if we go in PM2,5, you can see we have exceeded limited value all the time in winter period in many or in 50% of monitoring station. We have exceeded limited value. Also, we have exceeded limited value for PM2,5, PM10, and NO2 in many industrial area and in many residential area where we have a lot of people where they live, and we have heavy traffic there. And as I said, seasonal variation of PM2,5 concentration in all monitoring station we almost, during the cold season, we have exceeded limited value, and we are above WHO limit and our limits. And also, this problem started when we started, or when heating season begins in Kosovo, because people there, we are country with low income and use different way of heating in winter season. Which health outcomes we select? First of all, we select all-cause natural mortality. After that, we choose this cause-specific mortality for lung diseases, ischemic heart disease, COPD, stroke, and acute lower respiratory infection, especially to children 0 to 5 years old, and PM particles as the main stressors. And we also estimate year of life loss due premature mortality in Kosovo. And we found that in 2020, due to the exceedance of WHO limit value, 1,126 years of lives were lost due to the premature mortality for all age group. And unfortunately, we could save 848 years of life if we annually can decrease PM 2.5 and PM 10 just for 5 micrograms per meter per square. And also this long study, we also we have done estimate burden of disease in ambient air pollution in Kosovo during the reported period 2017-2019. And we can see here in this graph, ischemic heart disease and stroke are the common diseases, follow from COPD and lung cancer. And we've, in this side, can see age groups. We can say that because age group 55, 60, 65, 17 are most affected from harmful effect from air pollution. Unfortunately, Kosovo is not signatory to any of the conventions, protocols, or international agreements related to air protection, because we are under 1244, and for that reason we cannot. Despite this, great efforts are made to incorporate, to implement the international norms, primarily those with EU, WHO, as a legal framework, as well as on the implementation. And I choose just 3 recommendations on this topic because I wanted to stay in this time just for 50 minutes and don't want to be so long. More focus we should be placed on the adaptation and transposition of air quality legislation and standards in Kosovo, in line with WHO and EU, because really we should compare our findings with their limits. Kosovo urgently needs to develop a national program and action plan for the improvement and management of air quality. And we should drafting administrative instructions for setting emission limit value for small combustions plan, because during this project we saw that small combustion are big polluters in Kosovo, and which is priorities for improvement for further years, for next steps. Mitigation strategies that go beyond the control of combustions related to PMs must be implemented to reduce the health effect of PMs in urban areas, especially in industrial zones. There is still a great need for further research to be carried out in the field of environmental and health, not just to take or to wait from international projects, but we should start to do something with our budget under Ministry of Health, under different or multidisciplinary teams in our country to do something in this, which are related to health impact assessment to air pollution exposure, including the economic cost related to that. Because absenteeism from work, from school, invalidity, we are not known in Kosovo yet. Environmental health information system must be established in Kosovo. Why? If you wanted to take morbidity data in Kosovo and to do any comparison with the other countries, that is impossible in Kosovo because we do not have health information system, a digitalization health information system, and we could not compare the diagnosis with the other countries. For that reason, we are going with Kosovo Agency of Statistics with mortality rate 30 plus years age because they have yearly publishing that report and we use the data to do this study. But morbidity data is difficult to collect in Kosovo. And to do health risk assessment study, really we should have good reporting data from 3 levels, health levels, primary, secondary, and tertiary levels in Kosovo. I try to be short because I want to give your floor to make any question if you are interested or.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this update of the air pollution in Kosovo and its health impact. We are now open for questions. If you
I can make the first one.
Yes.
And thank you, Antigona, for the very interesting presentation. One question is about the domestic heating. You mentioned that it's the highest source of pollution. And what is the main source? Is wood burning? Because
Coal, because in Kosovo we have coal
okay.
plants there, which we use for electricity. In the same time, people get that coal and use for heating.
Now, because we have a similar problem in some parts because they have the forest and they can use the forest for burning. But I was curious because I don't know how much of they use. And I was impressed of the high burden of stroke compared to the other cardiovascular disease because in other countries it's the cardiovascular and ischemic is the opposite.
Yes, opposite. But in our study, we found that data because, and we was surprised for that because I maybe forget to mention before when you ask for heating period, because we in Kosovo have just 3 municipalities which are in central heating connected. The other one, they use different type of heating. For the reason, maybe they use not just coal, but maybe and wood and the other.
Okay. Interesting, and compliments again for the presentation.
Thank you.
Rona, you said that you have monitoring stations.
Yes,
all
open
around
data. We have 12 monitoring state station and 1 station we use from US Embassy in Pristina, only for PM 2.5.
Which are accessible in real time by
In real time, in real time.
So you are much more advanced than we are in this.
We are,
in this
I said
here.
at the beginning,
Yeah.
we are much more advanced and we are the first in the European Commission there because all that monitoring station we gave from Millennium Challenge Corporation, all that news just to hear which give from their project, which I was coordinator there.
This is great.
Thank you.
The transposition is not such as difficult. Maybe
Yes, I know this problem in your country.
Okay.
Really.
Let's go now. Thank you so much. Let's go now to the last presentation. Edesa Tsakoni from Polytechnic University of Tirana will present human perception of air pollution in Albania through statistical analysis. Edesa, if you have so much difficulties in English, maybe you can make it in Albanian, don't worry. Okay.
Shëndetje, jam Edesa Tsakoni. Jam Edesa Tsakoni, studente e inxhinierisë matematike në Universitetin Politeknik të Tiranës. Okay. Dhe sot do të bëj do ju paraqes prezantimin me temë perceptimi njerëzor për ndotjen e ajrit në Shqipëri. Sipas statistikave dhe sipas analizës statistikore. Atëherë, ndotja e ajrit kemi marrë në studim kemi marrë në studim 4 zona për ndotjen e ajrit, siç janë Lapërda Berat, Elbasan, Tiranë dhe Spjellë e Kavaj. Nga studimet që kemi bërë, kemi marrë moshën, gjinin, zonën dhe perceptimin që kanë për ndotjen e ajrit, perceptimin e njerëzve për ndotjen e ajrit. Kemi marrë gjinin në 79 persona, ku kemi 54.4% të tyre janë femra dhe vetëm 45.6% janë meshkuj që kanë marrë pjesë në pyetësor. Kemi marrë pjesën e numrin e pjesëmarrësve sipas nivelit të arsimit, ku i kemi ndarë në zonat rurale dhe në zonat urbane, ku në zonat rurale 56% janë me arsim 8-9 vjeçar dhe në zonat dhe 44% janë me arsim të mesëm ose të lartë. Ndërsa në zonat urbane kemi 6% me arsim 8-9 vjeçar dhe 94% me arsim të mesëm dhe arsim të lartë. Këtu kemi numrin e pjesëmarrësve sipas statusit të punësimit, ku 47 pjesëmarrës janë të punësuar, 18 janë të papunë dhe vetëm 14 janë në pension. Atëherë, këtu kemi të paraqitur heat mapin për pjesën e zonave, ku ndahen në rurale dhe urbane, ku perceptimi i ajrit në zonat urbane është shumë më i lartë, sesa, domethënë perceptimi i ndotjes së ajrit është shumë më i lartë sesa në zonat rurale. E perceptojnë si problem më serioz në zonat urbane. Atëherë, sipas analizave statistikore, kemi bërë testin hi-katror për pjesën e zonës dhe perceptimit të ndotjes së mjedisit, ku zona ka ndikim domethënës ndërmjet zonës dhe perceptimit të mjedisit. Sipas values që është 0.05, është më e vogël se 0.05, prandaj edhe na del që ka ndikim domethënës mes zonës dhe perceptimit të mjedisit. Atëherë kemi perceptimin e ajrit dhe gjinin, ku sipas të dhënave statistikore nuk ka ndonjë domethënie midis gjinin dhe ndotjes së ajrit, domethënë nuk ka të dhëna statistikore domethënëse. Kemi testin hi-katror për pjesën e për grup moshën dhe cilësinë e mjedisit, perceptimin e ndotjes së mjedisit sipas personave që janë marrë në pyetje, ku edhe grup mosha nuk është se ka statistikisht nuk është se ka një domethënie në ndikimin e perceptimit të cilësisë së ajrit. Atëherë kemi marrë perceptimin e ajrit sipas nivelit të arsimit, ku sipas të dhënave statistikore, niveli i arsimit ndikon në perceptimin e ajrit, ndikon në perceptimin e ajrit, ku perceptimin e ajrit personat që janë me arsim të mesëm dhe të lartë e kanë më të lartë perceptimin si problem për ajrin, sesa personat me arsim 8-9 vjeçar. Këtu kemi bërë modelin logjistik, ku kemi marrë pjesën që, domethënë, ato që kishin lidhje statistikore, siç ishte zona edhe niveli i arsimit. dhe na del që sipas të dhënave statistikore, zona urbane dhe me arsim të mesëm dhe të lartë janë 82.7%, është më problem, me probabilitet 82.7% është problem, ndërsa ato zona rurale dhe me arsim të ullët, është probabiliteti 7.7% që të afektojnë si problem. Dhe sipas statistikave, pra 7.7% me të edukimit të ullët e shfaqin si problem, pra 7.7% të nivelit arsimor, po, me arsim të ullët, ndërsa 53.6% me arsim 82.7% me arsim të lartë. Atëherë kemi rekomandimet për të marrë më shumë të dhëna, për të zgjeruar, që të japim të dhëna më të sakta statistikore, të marrim më shumë të dhëna, të zgjerojmë etikun e të dhënave dhe të vendosim dhe të bëjmë
Edisa ishte shumë emocionuar në fakt.
Ishte parë që
She has been very scared, maybe, a little bit. Atëherë po drejtojmë në Shqip. Në fakt, keni nxjerrë korrelacionin për moshën, për nivelin e arsimimit edhe për zonën kryesisht dhe për punësimin. Ajo që ju keni nxjerrë në këtë studim, të duket se përkon diçka me studimet ose me diskutimet që u bën pak më përpara?
Është zona, do me thënë, zona urbane ka probabilitet më të lartë që ta perceptojnë si zonë më të ndotë, sesa zona rurale, po ashtu edhe personat me arsim të mesëm dhe të lartë kanë perceptim të ndotjes më të lartë sesa ato me arsim të ullët.
Po, që mund të jetë një korrelacion i mirë dhe me ato që thamë më përpara, që prandaj ndodhin digjet në mjedis të hapur në zonat rurale, sepse pjesa e arsimuar është vendosur në qytete në fakt. Dhe ajo pjesë që ka ngelur andej nuk është aq e ndërgjegjësuar për problemet mjedisore dhe pjesën e ndotjes. Mirë. Faleminderit. Pyetje. Po.
Okay. Po. Atëherë
lidhur me mostrën, kisha pyetje, si është llogaritur mostra e personave që janë marrë studim dhe si është përzgjedhur ajo? Dhe lidhur me regresionin, doja të pyes si është, pra, ju keni përdorur një regresion logjistik, me sa kuptoj, po cilat janë kovarijet që janë mbajtur në kontroll në regresion për të mos patur ato, le të themi, një ndikim në rezultatin e regresionit?
Regresioni logjistik është marrë mosha e personave që janë pyetur dhe perceptimi dhe zona rurale ose urbane është marrë në shqyrtim. Pasi ato dilnin statistikisht që ndikonin më shumë në cilësinë e ndotjes, në perceptimin për cilësinë e ndotjes. E prandaj kemi marrë.
Faleminderit. Po lidhur me mostrën, kampionin?
Lidhur me mostrën kemi marrë 79 persona nga 4 vende të ndryshme, si që ishin zonat Tiranë, Spillek, Kavaj, Lapërdha Berat, edhe Elbasani, po. Edhe kemi marrë, do me thënë, nga këto persona, kemi marrë analiza statistikore të tyre, kemi marrë po ashtu të dhëna demografike, si që ishin gjinia, mosha, arsimi.
A mendoni ju që ky sample është përfaqësues për zonën, apo do të thënë janë bërë për llogaritje për të patur një sample përfaqësues për këto zona, apo sipas komenteve dhe rekomandimeve që thatë mendoni se duhet jetë një sample më i gjerë?
Po, janë bërë llogaritje dhe te pjesa e gjinisë dhe të aty nuk është të dilnin, do me thënë statistikisht, po, edhe do e zgjerojmë që të marrim dhëna më të zgjeruara për të dhënë statistikisht një përgjigje më të saktë.
Unë do t'ju sugjeroja që ndoshta ju, duke qenë se jeni në departamentin e shkencave eksakte, mund t'jeni edhe më të dijshëm se ne në këtë drejtim, por gjithsesi ka shumë calculators online, sample calculators që mund t'i gjeni dhe mund t'ju lehtësojnë shumë në këtë proces. Duke pas parasysh popullatën e zonës, nivelin e konfidencës, e tjerë. Lehtësojnë shumë, sidomos ju që jeni student.
Në rregull, faleminderit.
The last question.
Personalisht, do të prajoja këtë proces. Është doktorat, ne kemi qenë të 30 për të thënë. Kemi pasur të mëtarë probleme, tim prezantim. Perceptimin shumë i rëndësishëm. Ne ndërtojmë vlerën e tonë. Dhe personalisht, anti që perceptimi nga persona me dizime, terciare. Është një lartë ka do në ndërtim primar ose sekundar. Megjithatë, statistikisht, po thuhet dhe gjithë personat me studim terciar, universitar, dhe vërtet, doktorat, të gjithë universitetët e botën më të ndodhur. Dhe unë me kolegun tim alban, diskutojmë shpesh të tipit të përgjithshëm apo grem të rëndë. I çfarë më thosh?
Për pjesën e ndotjes së ajrit është më mirë në fshat, do me thënë se është ajri më i pastër dhe
Thank you again, Elisa, for the presentation. I think we have to close the session because we are a bit late. And before a very few words to close the very interesting session, housekeeping information. After the lunch, certificates of participation will be distributed. So not after the next session, but after lunch. And after the end of the session, please stay in the room. We are going to have a group photo. And they give me the opportunity to say a few words. And it's very, also this last presentation, I think, give us the opportunity to think about the aim of the conference, to promote the perception, because most of the people exposed probably with the presentation of Elvira, with a high level of pollutants in the countryside, they have no perception of the health risk. So it's very interesting about how it's very connected, the research in the presentation, and how we have to think about the chronic diseases caused by air pollution, talking from dementia and rheumatoid disease and other rheumatic disease, and their sources in the several countries, Italy, Albania, and Kosovo, and how we have to improve our measurements. And so I think we have a very big start and very great start of the conference with this session. And thank you very much for attending this, very interesting questions and active participation.
Faleminderit, qëndroni për një foto në fund sesionit.